If you're like me and you enjoy taking some time away over the weekends to spend time with friends and family and get away from the online space, which is just a very negative cesspool place where people sort of scream and yell at each other constantly, you woke up this morning to what is called a psyop. Yes, that's actually being carried out, and there's actually been numerous psyops that's been played out in South Africa over the last 30 years. And even before that, the apartheid government under the National Party were also very much using psyops, and using psyop just means a psychological operation. They were using psychological operations in order to get the population to do basically what they want or see the news or the world in the way that they would benefit from it. So you woke up this morning and you saw things like this. The Presidency of South Africa posting on X. Shortly before the dawn of a democratic and free South Africa in 1994, the founding father of our democracy, President Nelson Mandela, said, "The time has come for South Africa to take up its rightful and responsible place in the community of nations." His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, or City Press and News 24 and the Daily Maverick, all singing the praises of Cyril Ramaphosa and how he was able to outmaneuver Donald Trump and the United States over the boycott of the G20, or Paul Mashatile talking about how incredible the work is that the ANC did during the G20. Everywhere on social media, all of the mainstream media are currently celebrating the giant success that is the G20 summit in Johannesburg. But what does that success actually look like? Was it a success? How exactly did we achieve this? So before we can talk about whether or not this was a success, we have to talk about what is the G20. Well, there's really no nice way of saying it. The G20 is one of the most useless organizations, I think, in international politics. And that's saying a lot, because international politics is riddled with useless organizations. Take something like the United Nations. The United Nations is a forum where every nation in the world gets together and votes and talks about things. The problem, the United Nations has no enforcement on. It cannot force any country to abide by any of the resolutions that gets passed in its Security Council or in its various other departments. Basically, it can make suggestions and countries can just go, "No, I don't think I will." And then the United Nations can literally do nothing about it. There's NATO, which is another very useless organization, because again, it can't actually force anyone, and really NATO is just code for United States doing whatever the hell it feels like doing. Fundamentally, the G20 is no different, and you simply need to look at the resolutions or the declarations that's been passed in the last 5 years. Now, I could show you the actual articles about this, but since Grok can just quickly summarize it for us, in 2024 in Rio de Janeiro, we have the Building a Just World and a Sustainable Planet. You have in New Delhi, in India, One Earth, One Family, One Future. Then you have in Bali Summit, you had in 2022, Recover Together, Recover Stronger. By the way, almost everything that they wanted to do here just never happened, and actually we've completely reversed all of that. The Rome in 2021, the Rome Summit, People, Planet, Prosperity, the 3 Ps. These are just the most recent declarations that's been passed by the G20. Of all of these declarations, not a single one of them has actually ever materialized into anything different. The reason the G20 has no enforcement on. It is basically a suggestion that all countries sort of agree to by a show of hands, just FYI. They literally just go, "Who's in favor?" And then countries just put up their hands. So there's no official vote. It's basically just saying, "Yeah, all right, we'll do it." One of the key things here is China pretty much always votes yes on all of the green technology bills or resolutions or declarations that the G20 passes. Never mind the fact that China is the world's #1 coal builder. Yes, China builds more solar farms than any other country in the world, but it also, on the other side, builds more coal-fired power plants than any other country in the world. Because for China, they built the solar farms so that the media can talk about how much China cares about the global warming crisis. And then they built the coal-fired power plants so that they can actually have energy so that they don't fall behind the rest of the world. And of course, this is just another one of those. The most recent one is solidarity, equality, and sustainability. It's mostly useless. It's mostly sort of wanting the IMF to adopt certain strategies when it comes to lending money to poorer African countries, which one might make the argument the IMF is a little bit harsh. But to be fair, every other country in the world that borrows from the IMF has to go through the same thing. What the ANC is trying to do with this declaration is get the IMF to cut special deals for the African countries that other countries in the world does not agree to. But then again, the victim, the professional victims of the ANC in South Africa, they kind of like this rules for thee, not for me approach. So I guess that sort of speaks volumes to it. The point I'm trying to make is that the G20 is always a failure. There is no such thing as a successful G20 declaration. They don't matter because the countries aren't forced to abide by them or do what needs to be done. This one, however, is even more in contention. So ordinarily, these declarations require what is known as unanimous consent, right? So it is consensus-based, but also they tend to want unanimous support for the declaration. The problem here, the United States boycott, that's an automatic no. And Argentina also said no. So that's two countries that said, no, we don't agree with this declaration. The ANC, for their part, changed everything. So ordinarily, you would have the G20 summit, and on the third and final day of the G20 summit, they would have the adoption, the declaration, so to speak. This time around, they had the vote for the declaration on day one. And according to many, actually in the know, this was because a lot of countries feared the United States. They feared that if they left it to the third day, the United States would get a lot of the countries on the G20 in the G20 to renege on voting yes on this declaration. And so in order to ensure that Trump couldn't influence any of the other nations, they passed it on the first day, which sort of threw the entire program out of whack and made the race or the following days of the G20 summit completely useless because, well, they're supposed to lead up to the vote, not wind down from the vote. But then again, the G20 is mostly just a forum for different nations to make deals behind the scenes and behind closed doors. So I guess in that sense, it's sort of significant, and it still had some successes on its slate. The problem is that no resolution that gets adopted, right? Even one such as this that had two, and well, at least one of the major economies of the G20 saying no, will ever have any feet to stand on, is the fact that that nation that said no is the United States. The United States, from an economic perspective, is the powerhouse of the world. China and all of the other nations of the G20 barely manages to beat out the United States economy. And China's economy isn't even that good at the moment. It is starting to struggle. So from this perspective, unless the United States is going to back your play on a declaration within the G20, your declaration is dead. So when you see articles like this, it is genuinely just a psyop. This is the mainstream media desperately trying to sell you that the ANC did a bang-up job, that the president is a bang-up man, and he is he should be celebrated as a hero in South Africa. And you see it all across all across social media at the moment. You see these accounts coming out of nowhere, just going, it's not South Africa they hate. They hate being led by blacks because it's always about race. Listen here, Sabelo. I promise you, it has nothing to do with your skin color. It's the fact that you're a moronic communist. That's what I hate. I couldn't care less whether you're black, white, blue, or purple. I hate you as much as I hate Peter Kriel, and that boy is white. I just hate communists because you guys are stupid and you keep killing hundreds of millions of people with your stupid ideas. We are witnessing the end of the global dominance of the USA in our lifetime. It's a new world order. Imagine saying that as a member of a failing state, right? We are South Africa. We are a failing nation. This nation is crumbling around us, and you think that this is the new world order. Why don't those who hate the country just leave? We cannot tolerate such toxicity. This is all part of the psyop. they're building this narrative that South Africa was successful, that President Ramaphosa just did something miraculous by passing a non-binding declaration in a non-binding League of Nations, right? Fundamentally, we didn't do anything. We changed the rules in order to get the declaration through. Then we pretended like it was unanimously supported, despite the fact that Argentina said no, they don't agree with the declaration. Fundamentally, this declaration is dead in the water. But the psyop that is currently being sold to the South African people is that this was a success. And I guess from the ANC's perspective, it was kind of a success. The ANC are masters of talking and not doing anything. And if you want an organization that sort of embodies that, it is the G20. Talk a lot, don't do anything about it. So I guess in that sense, okay, sure, Ramaphosa was hugely successful in absolutely achieving nothing. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that is just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. If you like what I do and you think more people should see it, please consider hitting that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this video around with as many people as possible. Massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons and the YouTube channel members for helping support this channel. To become a patron, link in the description down below, or join button right below this video. As always, I'll see all of you in the next one. Peace.